Welcome to GAT, Timnit.
Salam Taklai, thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. I have been asking my Facebook followers who I should invite, and the one name that they consistently mention is you. So I think it's fair to say that you are here by popular demand.
Okay. Give the people what they want.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot that they want to hear from you about AI, about the things that you do, about the issues that you find
hmm
objectionable. We have about 1 hour. I don't know how much material we could cover, but we're going to try to cover as much material as possible. So
Okay.
yesterday I was trying to write a brief summary of you, how to introduce you and stuff, and then in the end, I actually thought I would ask ChatGPT how it would introduce you. I know this is something
Okay.
that you have some choice words to say, but this is how ChatGPT described you, and I want you to tell me what exception you take to that. Timnit Gebru is a renowned computer scientist and advocate for ethical AI. I think so far so good. She's a co-founder of the Distributed Artificial Intelligence Research Institute and has made
Wrong.
significant contributions to algorithmic fairness and ethical implications of AI. I think so far so
Okay,
good as
good.
well.
But I'm the founder of DAIR, not the co-founder.
All right, so one mistake already. And Timnit is also known for her pivotal work on bias in AI systems and has commitment to increasing diversity in tech. Fair enough.
Yeah, yeah, pretty fair so far.
All right. And my next question to ChatGTP was, what are the questions that I should ask Timnit Gebru?
Oh God.
And these are the
Okay.
things that it came up with. Question number one is background and journey. I think interesting. Question number two is AI ethics and fairness. I think interesting as well. Number three, challenges in the AI field. Number four is the importance of diversity. Number five is the future of AI. And number six is activism and advocacy. So these are
Okay.
what ChatGPT thinks I should ask you.
What
So
about you? What do you think?
I think very interesting, very important questions. I think the devil is in the detail, as they say, and that is where you will have a lot of things to say. But we're going to get into the details. But first, I want you to tell us what artificial intelligence is.
Okay, so I'll start by saying artificial intelligence is a marketing term. So many times there are many things, subsets of specialties in artificial intelligence. So when you're in times of really big hype like now, those one of those specialties becomes called AI, right? And then when we don't have a bubble anymore, it goes back down to not being called AI. So this specialty, so there are many subfields within the AI. So one is natural language processing. That is a specialty that is related to analyzing human speech or text and trying to understand it. Like, so if we wanted to create an automatic speech transcription system that transcribes Tigrinya, for example, that would be within the kind of NLP or speech, that kind of natural language processing paradigm. Then there is computer vision, and that's kind of deals with the visual domain. So when you have things like face recognition systems, that would be, in computer vision. Um, and then there's many other specialties. So all of those kind of are called AI in what do you call it? Like it's like an umbrella term. But then other people kind of, that's how I define it. There's some other people who define AI as some sort of super intelligent machine that you can build that has capabilities that are human or like a human or higher. And so some people call that AGI, artificial general intelligence. So yeah, so there's many different kind of ways to define AI, but generally speaking, it's a field that kind of gets used as a marketing term, but there are subfields that are kind of, I think, real specialties within the field.
So, for someone like me who's a layman, I log into ChatGPT and I ask the sort of questions that I just told you, and more or less I'm satisfied with the answer that I get, and I go away with sense of satisfaction, and I'm inclined to think that these are good products. But of course, that is not what you think. And indeed, when you were at Google, I think a lot of people would know the story. You were working on AI tools based on large language models, which is what ChatGPT is based on, and you flagged an important problem embedded in them. What was that?
So, ChatGPT and similar other products are based on what are called large language models. So what large language models do is they're trained on large amounts of text on the internet, right? And they are trained to find patterns in those texts and output the most probable sequences of words. So if I manage to have most of the internet text, let's say, with complete gibberish, then the large language models would output complete gibberish, right? So they're not trained to to have any sort of understanding of what is fact, what is not real. They are just trained to take a bunch of text and stitch things together and learn and find out patterns. So with enough text, there are some patterns that you can really see, right? And so, but it's very easy to fool people into thinking that they're talking to something that is smart, that knows things. And so you have cases where ChatGPT outputs something very confident, but completely wrong. So there was a case where a lawyer used outputs of ChatGPT to write some sort of demand letter in court, and it was the cases it cited were completely wrong, right? And the way you interface with ChatGPT makes you feel like you're talking to some other human or something superhuman that knows way more than you. But if you try to talk to right in like Tigrinya or Amharic or some other thing that it hasn't been trained for, you really know that it's not like that, right? Because there isn't enough text to even make it look like it has learned patterns. So that's one of the main things that we talked about. The other thing the number one thing we talked about is the environmental costs of such systems. And so for you want to ask a question like this about me to ChatGPT, while you were to get those answers back, it probably took multiple bottles of water, right? Is it worth it to have that kind of, and that's just for you. So imagine all of the different people around the world, and when they're interacting with ChatGPT, how much water that takes. And then to train the system, it takes a lot of carbon footprint and computational resources. So much so that Google just abandoned their goal of carbon neutrality because these systems are taking so much. So they're taking so much carbon footprint, right? So the first question we ask is, the computational resources, the environmental resources, the financial cost that it takes for anybody to try to work on something like this worth whatever benefit you think you're going to get. And one of the things we highlighted is that those risks and benefits are not equally distributed. If you're, Tigray, let's say, if you're someone who lives there, you're not really getting the benefit of ChatGPT. It doesn't even talk in your language. It doesn't even give you relevant information. But you will be getting disproportionate amount of the harms of the environmental catastrophe that is coming because we're using so many resources, right? In addition to that, you also have the people who are cleaning up all of the outputs of ChatGPT. So there is, just like social media, there's a lot of hateful, disturbing content that is output by these things. And just like social media, you need human beings to moderate these things and try to figure out what is hate speech, what's not hate speech. And they're constantly absorbing this kind of information all day, all night. And they get very disturbed. They have until, sorry, do you hear dogs in the background? No?
Just about, but it's all right. It's all right.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's all right.
So,
Absolutely all right.
yeah, some of my dogs are here demanding to
Oh,
be
that's a cute dog. Yeah.
pet. Yeah. So, it's kind of like one of my colleagues called it, it's like an information, it's like an oil spill. So this is kind of an information spill in the ecosystem. And just like an oil spill, you have people like first responders who and the cleaning it up, sorry, are those who are cleaning it up are often people. So there's moderators in Kenya, there are moderators in other places. There are people from Tigray working on those things that we worked with. And so these are many of the risks. People get super excited about technology. They have to ask, what is it doing for me? What is it doing for my people? Who is benefiting and who's not benefiting? So, and one of the main things that we talked about in this paper that we fired is that when you look at the internet, you have all this data on the internet, but it's not representative of actual human beings, right? How does it protect certain groups of people? And who is represented in the first place? Most people are not even on the internet. Like so people think that this is kind of an ultimate truth that is represented in these kinds of systems, but it's not.
Well, in one interview that you gave about your time at Google, Timnit, you say that when you first joined the company, it didn't occur to you to realize the sort of problem that you sort of stumbled into after you have done the research and all that. So, I mean, first of all, why was it that you didn't quite see the problem? Because it could relate to why many other people don't maybe see the problem that you're trying to flag. And second, I mean, the way you're describing it, you would think that any sensible person would sort of understand and take no issue with it and try to take steps to address it. But that wasn't the experience that you had. You were sort of treated as a witch. You were hounded out, and the problem that you identified was sort of they tried to suppress it. And why was that?
So, I'm a technologist like everybody else. So you want to be excited about technology. You want to think that it's, always making progress, and you don't want to, you don't want to believe that somebody's building things that don't make sense. So before I worked at Google, I was showing the issues with face recognition systems, that they had really high error rates on trying to recognize darker skinned people. And so, you know, we uncovered that problem. We published a paper. Some people didn't want to believe it, that this was an issue. Other people did. And so when I worked at Google, large language models weren't really a big thing at the time. And the other thing is that the issue with large language models is not just the fact that they exist, it's that companies like OpenAI are talking about them as if they're gonna be stepping stones to what they call AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is like a machine god kind of thing. So that's when the issue started, because they started pushing these large language models as something that is trying to be all-knowing. Now, when you're trying to create something that's all-knowing, you won't think about small resources, small amounts of data sets. What is the task that I want to build a tool for? How do I test it, etc. If you're trying to build an all-knowing God, you're gonna use all possible resources in the world, and then you're gonna justify it. You're gonna say, okay, this is fine because once I build this thing, it's gonna solve everything. That's how they talk. If you read some of the texts, they will say, these algorithms will lead to systems that will solve everything else. If anybody else talked like this, you would think they're crazy. Like, you're saying, I'm gonna build something that will solve everything, and it doesn't make it. Just give me $7 trillion.
Just
you know?
on that point, Tim, I was actually listening to an interview of that
Yeah.
someone who just won the Nobel Prize
Jeff
gave
Hinton, yeah.
about, I think
Or Demis
Wasabi,
Hassabis,
yeah,
Demis
and he
Hassabis,
was
yeah.
saying that his aim is to solve intelligence, to sort of understand what intelligence is
Yeah.
through artificial intelligence, and then once he has solved intelligence, then everything else will be taken care of. And again, the question that I would like to ask you, Tim, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds because I don't have the technical
Yeah.
expertise, but what I want to understand is, as a layman listening to him, I am sort of am impressed. I don't see any problem with that. You know, he's true for me.
You think
He's
it's
trying to.
possible? Okay, so let me tell you, do you think it's if a magician came to you and said, I'm gonna build a machine that will solve world peace, and they don't want to engage with the wars that we talk about, they don't want to engage, do you believe them? Like, you know what I'm saying? If someone comes to me and says, I'm gonna build a table, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Someone comes to me and says, I'm gonna study how gravity works or something. If someone says, I'm gonna solve the every problem in the world, and you see what is happening, while they're saying that, they're exploiting. When you look at your own people, those people are working for people who are saying stuff like that in Kenya, and they're getting paid $1 per hour, really literally having PTSD because they're seeing such toxic material, right? This is not solving anything. They are consuming so many resources that they are contributing, accelerating the climate catastrophe. That's not solving any problems, right? And they are creating products that are outputting some really horrific things about many people in the world that are not represented in their data sets. So they're telling you all of this, but then they're saying this is the reality. But then you see what their goal is. They're saying, I'm going to solve all of intelligence. And then let me just kind of go back to the idea of solving intelligence. I don't think people understand what the origins of kind of talking about intelligence are. A lot of these kinds of people, when you ask, okay, I want to solve intelligence, how do you measure intelligence? That's the first thing they'll say. They go back to IQ, the IQ test. What are the origins of the IQ test and how it was used? This is eugenics. Eugenics means trying to create a superior race, right? And this is what the Nazis did, what they wanted to do, racial hygiene program. And that's why they committed a genocide trying to create a superior race. And all these IQ tests were used to discriminate against Black people, to have what they call anti-miscegenation laws against mixed race mixing, to justify why they should colonize people, because we are inferior. Our intelligence, according to them, is inferior, right? So it's okay to colonize. It's okay to enslave. And because if you want to create a superior race, these people like us should not be reproducing because we're the inferior race. This is the origin of the entire IQ intelligence conversation. So Demis, Hassabis, he's in a group of people who have been working on trying to solve, like his co-founder wrote a paper similarly called general, on the question of general intelligence or something like that. So this is the origin of whatever they're trying to create. They're trying to create, literally, they called it transhuman AGI, transhuman artificial general intelligence. And transhuman means transcending humanity. They want to create something that, like something, let's say, that lives 500 years, that never feels, any health issues or whatever. And then they want to colonize space. They want to build these things in digital minds, like, kind of upload your brain, like the Matrix. They want to live in the Matrix. And they think it's important to colonize the entire space. Not even space, universe, multiverse, whatever it is. This is how they talk, if you really see it. So you look at this conversation, and then you look at what's happening on the ground and how it's impacting people on the ground and the origins of this kind of conversation and what the goals are, right? And how does that help anybody that you know, anybody that you care about? Actually, what it's doing is the complete opposite. So to me, it's really important to identify. I've learned how propaganda works, I think, seeing this whole thing. Because if you see what these people say, how they're treated in the media versus the actual reality on the ground, how much money they get, and then it's like the Nobel Prize, and then it's, and it's kind of all of this stuff in the air, and all of this money, billions of dollars are going into this. What can the starving people of Tigray do with like $1 billion? Why is it not going there? Why is it going to people who say they'll first solve intelligence and then that will solve all the other problems, right? I mean, we should be asking these questions and not just take whatever they say for granted.
So these are the problems that you see in the way, let's say, mainstream AI is being built, right? And your answer to that is that your institute, the Distributing Artificial Intelligence Research Institute. So, I mean, first, what are you trying to achieve with that, and in what way are you trying to develop AI in a fundamentally different way?
First of all, I'm not interested in solving intelligence, whatever that means. And then the justification is to solve intelligence, you have to give a couple of companies billions of dollars, billions, hundreds of billions. And these couple of companies are always located in the same exact locations in the world. And none of that billions goes to anybody else. So you have people, scientists who are getting millions of dollars of salaries every year with the justification that they're going to do this grand thing, which is solve intelligence, like build a god. Build a god is what they want to do. So first of all, why would it be okay for someone else here to get all the money to claim to be saving everybody else? Why is everybody else not the one who's getting the money to create whatever tools they think are necessary for their own lives? It doesn't make sense, right? So to me, that's the first step is that if you want to build anything that is beneficial to humanity, you have to include the people who are currently actually working with humanity, right? And so that was the first kind of idea.
I think one of the argument they make, especially the people under the altruistic, what would they? You will help me with
altruist.
Exactly.
Effective altruist.
What they say is that if you were creating a product that would benefit humanity in the future, even if it came at the cost of hurting human beings today, that is something that is worth it. I think that is what they would say, right?
Let me tell you what their argument is. So the goal is to maximize happiness or some value, to maximize some utility. So this is called utilitarianism. To maximize collective value of some sort. So they have a number that they calculate. Now, according to them, let's say you want to maximize the number of future digital beings that colonize space and live in the matrix. There could be so many of these people, like this guy Nick Bostrom, who's another faction called the long-termists. He says there could be 10 to the 53, 10 to the 53 people. This is enormous, apparently, right? That can live billions of years away from now. So our goal should be to maximize the likelihood of the existence of these 10 to the 53 million people. If 1 million people are dying right now, we shouldn't care about that. We should not care about that. If your neighbor is, starving, you should not help the neighbor. You should think, no, what can I do to maximize this 10 to the 53 billion whatever people in the future that are colonizing space, living in an uploaded matrix, not humanity. So to me, these people don't like being human. These people don't like humanity. So all this money is going, but they have billions of dollars. Let's just be clear. So all this money is going to people who don't like the idea of being human or feeling human emotions or helping community or anything. Like it's so this is the origin of the whole solving intelligence, this you know, all of that we're talking about. These are a mix of different ideologies that are at play. So, but you know, because they have so much money and power, they, you know, first they have the money of billionaires like Elon Musk or others. Once you get that money, then you have the media, because then you write books and you have, you know, publicity that gives you millions of dollars to distribute your books. And then you go to the UN or something. The UN wants to listen to you. Then you go, the Nobel Prize people don't want to be left out, so they give you the Nobel Prize, you know. And then I know that this is gonna be shown to be a bubble or something like that, but because it has happened in the past. But the problem is, let's say this thing bursts, these people still have their money, they still have their fame or whatever, and then a new cycle is created later on. So nobody's ever held accountable, right? And then in the meantime, everybody else pays the price. The climate catastrophe will still kill more people. Labor exploitation will still, you know, exploit more people in the global majority countries. And that, you know, that cycle will just repeat.
Well, now to Distributed Artificial Intelligence Research Institute.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it. What are you trying to achieve there?
Right. So we're not interested in solving intelligence or whatever. We don't think there's such a thing. You know, and I'm interested in allowing, I don't think there's like one type of perfect human, or I'm not trying to transcend humanity or anything like that. We're trying to ask, you know, all the different humans in the world, what are the ways in which we can enable them to create tools that help them that in some way, right? So that means that you have to, and you don't do that tool, you don't create the tools for them. You have to help them create tools that help themselves. So when it comes to speech recognition or natural language processing, why do I have to talk to my mom in English? I don't speak to my family in English. I speak to them in Tigrinya. But when I'm emailing, or when I have to all of a sudden, like, you know, write in Tigrinya, I mean in English, or speak in English or whatever, because my digital identity.
And here we are speaking in English as well. You and me.
Sunatka, that was your choice.
All right.
So
That's for another time. It's for another time.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways, what I'm saying is that, you know, it's very unnatural. I would never look to at my mother and speak in English. That I can't do it. But when I'm writing, we all write in English, you know, communicating, email, whatever, because it's not natural for us. We don't have tools that are natural for us to kind of just speak in our mother tongue or whatever. And so, you know, that's the kind of stuff I'm working on, right? I want to see, I want to help people who are building tools for their own people, like Asma Lash Tekka is a fellow who's working on state-of-the-art natural language tools. With his company, he has machine translation that translates from English or Amharic or Tigrinya, like, and now I'm even working on Afan Oromo to, you know, between these languages. They're working on, they have just finished, and I think they're going to release it soon, speech transcription, so that you can, you know, actually transcribe speech in Tigrinya and Amharic accurately, you know, with their tools. Google, Facebook, these people are not interested in doing stuff like that, because there's lots of languages in the world that they're not interested in for them, right? We just had another project that we're working on, is to look at satellite images, use satellite images to look at the neighborhoods in South Africa, and analyze the extent to which apartheid has changed, right? So even though apartheid has legally ended, we don't know whether people's lives haven't really changed that much. They haven't really gotten better. So we're looking at and the government doesn't want to admit admit this. So they're not making it easy in the census to see where were townships, which were where Black people had to be during apartheid versus everything else. So, and we're using our skills in AI, in this specific case, computer vision, to do that kind of analysis so that we can see, hey, actually, people in townships don't have as good hospitals as everybody else. So why is that? Maybe that could lead to better policies and things like that. We're doing, for instance, we're looking at social media, and we're seeing, if you look at any social media platform, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and you look at it in Tigrinya, for example, and it's like, for me, it's like 4chan. I mean, 4chan is like a hate, it's a social media platform that's known for hate, right? So I want to know how much more hateful is it in this in Tigrinya than it is in, let's say, English. To do that, you need all of these tools that don't exist in our languages, right? And so these are the kinds of things we're working on. We want to work on tools that we think help people that we care about, and are, and don't contribute to the climate catastrophe, don't exploit labor. We have content moderators, former content moderators, who are traumatized working with us. I think if you saw, we have a project called the Data Workers Enquiry Project, and you can see Fasika's report. Fasika talks about during the genocide, during Tigray genocide, moderating Facebook content, and how traumatizing that was, right? And her colleagues write about moderating outputs of ChatGPT, and how traumatizing that was. Because why? For the output of ChatGPT to be, for all of us to have a safe online experience, they have to make sure that the output of ChatGPT isn't so disturbing. And it can be even more disturbing than what humans create, because you can generate infinitely disturbing amounts of content. So humans have to be looking at these things and help people to build filters, like hate filters and stuff. The thing is, that's really interesting, is because people like Demis and others are invested in the idea of making you think that they have built super intelligent systems, they want to hide the amount of labor, the amount of human labor that is involved in creating such things, whatever systems they're creating. There are over 300 million people around the world who are sitting there labeling data, doing a lot of grunt work so that you can see the output of ChatGPT and think that it's, magic. OpenAI is scraping websites so much that they're increasing people's server costs and increasing traffic costs, because they're just gobbling up all of this, data from all of us without our consent, right? For what? Is it really worth it to like have a picture of someone with like 15 fingers? Is it worth all of this money, all of this, labor exploitation, all of this climate catastrophe to have this kind of thing, So, I'm not into this kind of stuff, but there are other kinds of tools that I believe in. Like, for example, like I said, speech transcription can help many people, right? If you're a journalist, or if you're, wanted to transcribe this interview that we're having right now, if we were having it in another language, it would be very easy for you if you had a speech to text tool that can just automatically transcribe your tool. A lot of people don't have spell checkers even, a lot of languages. They can't use digital why can't we, if we have oral languages, why can't we just communicate on the internet orally always with whatever kind of website we want in our own languages, right? That's because the tools weren't created for those kinds of things, because the tools were created by people who have lots of money and resources, and that's not, our people. So those are the kinds of things we work on at DAIR. We're not interested in like some super intelligence, whatever. We're interested in distributing power amongst different people around the world so that they can create AI tools, or even tools, any kind of technological tool that is beneficial to them. And at the same time, we are uncovering and telling people and disseminating the extent to which the current ways of doing AI are harming people, and also the extent to which there is hype. We want to help people separate the hype from reality.
Well, brilliant, and good that you mentioned Asmela. She's a friend of mine. We went to the same school and college, and I have actually interviewed him here, where he spoke about what he was doing in Lausanne. I will try to have him on again about what he's getting up to. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of what he's doing and what you guys are doing together as well. But in terms of sort of continuation of the DAIR project, Timnit, you say, I think in one of your articles, that one of the things that people in Ethiopia and Africa generally should do is sort of take agency, that we have agency to change the skew, the imbalance in the way AI is being built. And I suppose one way of taking agency is educating young people to get into AI and to do important projects. And there will be people listening to us asking themselves, how is it that I could become someone like Timnit? How, what would the journey she has had? What are the subjects that I should be interested in? What are the technical requisites that I should have to be successful in AI? So if you could say a little bit about that as well, Timnit.
Well, so I think that there's foundational, so people should not try to cut corners. So the promise of a lot of people in AI is like, you don't have to learn how to do art now. You can just have AI art. You don't have to learn how to write code. AI will write the code. Don't do that. You need to learn the foundations. You need to be, you don't, there's no free lunch, as they say. Don't cut corners. Learn math, learn physics, learn the foundations. And then I think there's a lot of online materials to try to do some personal projects. There's something called fast.ai that I like. They used to have a lot of different resources. Just learn the foundation. So get a book on so you have to learn matrices. That's one, linear algebra later on, and that's a foundation. Foundations of coding. So we have Jelani Nelson created an organization called AddisCoder. So now it's grown. And so we have every year we have a coding camp for AddisCoder, and it's very intense because we don't let people cut corners. It's 1 month. They go from it's an algorithms class. So this is the kind of thinking you need to foster, kind of logical thinking, from when you're younger. So we do that. I have an organization called Black in AI that once people kind of do a little something in AI, whether it's a personal project or they've taken a couple of classes or whatever, they can apply to join Black in AI. And there you have lots of resources. You have lots of organization conferences and other things you can attend. Locally in East Africa, there's Data Science Africa, which is a summer school every summer. So you can apply for it, and then they bring students and they kind of teach you a whole bunch of things. There is the conference called Deep Learning in Dava, which is a big conference. And then people have locally, they have local chapters of these things. So for example, Data Science Africa in 2019 was in Addis. It was organized in Addis Ababa, and I was there actually. And then they organized Indaba X, a chapter in Ethiopia. I think it was in Sodo. So one thing I find, it's really interesting, is that when I started Black in AI, for example, all the Ethiopians in Ethiopia would meet for the first time at Black in AI, right? It's like there's this guy in Bahar Dar, there's this guy, whatever, and like they don't know each other, they don't connect. So people have to create local communities. That's always the first step to creating some sort of movement or some sort of support. Like you can just work on projects together and things like that. You have to create local communities and local connections. And so it was always shocking for me to be the person connecting all these people when I'm not there because they're not making local connections. So I think that's the first thing to do.
What if you could change sort of gears a little bit? We have a couple of about 10 minutes, 10 minutes, and so far we have spoken about AI from your point of view, from how you understand it, your history and everything. But if we were to, for the sake of argument, if we were to take a sort of charitable interpretation of what the other people that you object to are saying, like Jeffrey Hilton, for instance. I think I
I'm
read an
not
article
gonna do
about him
that.
yesterday where he was making the point that AI poses an existential threat to humanity, for instance. What, again, to just, if you could play the devil's advocate, because I think many of our listeners would also want to hear what are people saying when they say artificial intelligence, existential threat, super intelligence, transcendence,
Yeah.
transhumanity, and all that. What is he getting? Sort of, what is he trying to get at when he says that?
So let me tell you what he's trying to get at and why I objected. I'm a very big object. That's one of my main things, is objecting to these kind of existential threat superintelligence. And I wrote a paper about it. I was in many articles. It's even on Wikipedia, the paper I wrote about this. It's called the TESCREAL bundle, TESCREAL bundle.
Yeah,
So Jeff Hinton, right. So this is the idea. So let's say you build, like we were talking about, building transhuman AGI and all that, like that colonizes space and etc. What they say is, what if this thing becomes much more intelligent than humans and then decide and takes over, and we're like slaves to this kind of thing? That's what they're saying. And we just have, they say, we have to put all of our resources into preventing that hypothetical scenario. So let me just kind of get back to what I was saying. You have the same people, Jeff Hinton, OpenAI, whatever, they got billions of dollars to create whatever they're creating right now, right? And they are doing it with stealing data, labor exploitation, stealing resources, environmental catastrophe, etc. Now they're saying they need to have billions of dollars more to make sure that the thing they're building isn't gonna kill all of humanity. I mean, why? How can people not see this scam? It's like, give me $1 trillion to build the thing that will. Okay, what did Demis say? He wants to solve intelligence because it's gonna solve everything. And Demis also believes that this thing can also pose an existential threat. I come to you and I say, give me $1 billion because I will solve the thing that will solve everything. And then I'll say, also give me another $1 billion because the thing that will solve everything can kill everybody instead. So now I have $2 billion. One, to build the thing that will solve everything. I want to build the thing that so that to make sure that that thing does not kill everybody. In the meantime, what am I doing? In the meantime, I'm making lots of money. Lots and lots of money, unbelievable amounts of money. But the people in Africa who are actually the ones fueling these systems are traumatized. They're making $1 an hour. They're not, they a lot of people, you asked me this question, how to get into AI. A lot of these people working on data labeling and all of that, they wanted to get into AI. They thought this was, oh my God, I'm going to work for OpenAI. This is a way for me to think, to build my knowledge, work on the intellectual thing. But instead, they were left kind of doing extremely disturbing works, and now they're completely mentally kind of traumatized and discarded, right? So this is what's happening to those people. And then, of course, there's hurricanes and there's all sorts of climate catastrophe that people are dealing with because these people think they're telling you that it's worth it to invest all of these resources. Why? Because they're going to solve intelligence. And then once intelligence is solved, no more climate change, no more hurricanes, no more wars, no more genocide, no more. How can you? I honestly don't understand how people don't see this, scam, right? Because they're very good at it. And
so let me tell you, let me tell you
yeah.
why I don't see that. For instance, I study cryptography. I'm doing PhD in cryptography, although the PhD has turned into an interminable marathon. But anyway, we are trained
That's how it is. That's what a PhD is.
Yeah, we're trained to think in abstract terms sometimes, where sometimes you just you abstract the details away and you reason in terms of black boxes, and you are only interested in what the black box could do, rather than, I mean, the intricacies inside the box, right?
Yeah.
And when, as a non-expert in AI, I listen to Nick Bostrom or to Wasabi or to Hilton, or to Yuval Harari, which is sort of, he speaks at a very, very abstract level.
But so, he's not even in AI. Why does anybody listen to him?
But let me tell you why what they say makes sense to me. Because one of the points they make is that AI, the intelligence of AI is increasing exponentially, whereas human intelligence has a limit. So they say that at some point, the intelligence of machines will surpass that of human beings.
This is called the singularity.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like the rapture.
I want you to tell me why I am wrong to sort of buy their argument.
Okay, so let me just say that the whole thing about being abstract in cryptography, there's a paper called The Moral Character of Cryptographic Work by Philip Rockway. He's a cryptographer, right? You should read it because he says that cryptographers are responsible for the fact that we have mass surveillance and we have all this stuff and we haven't prevented it because they want to be like, oh, let's say there's A and B, well, who A is and who B is matters, right? And then he talks about different kinds of things like differential privacy, for instance, and how it fails if you think about the real world instead of, instead of abstracting things out. So it's really good paper. I like it. And that's how I think about machine learning too. That's how I think about AI and science in general. Science is situated in reality. We can't just it's nice to think abstractly, but that's not the real world. So when we're so abstract, we can cause a lot of harm. We actually can cause a lot of harm. But in terms of this singularity thing, what's his name? Yudkowsky, Eliezer Yudkowsky said he thought the singularity was going to come in 2025. 1 year. You gotta make sure pack your bags. So the idea is they'll say that there's two ways to have this intelligence explosion. One is that that the progress is so much that there will be a time after which we can't even understand what's going to happen, what kind of progress is going to happen. And then that's it, all bets are off. That's the singularity. One of these guys that is most well known for the singularity, Ray Kurzweil, he thinks that he takes lots of vitamins because he thinks he's gonna live to be like more than 100 or something like that. Because they're all transhumans, which means that they want to create a different species that is a better species than human. So these are called transhumans. And the transhumans are direct descendants of eugenicists because eugenics was to better the human race with better race. So get rid of the stupid people, engineer like how humans are created. But transhumans are not even about bettering the human race. They're about creating a different race. Now, if you know the history of eugenics, just think about you and I, where we'll be situated in that whole transhuman whatever. We're not the better race, right? So this is kind of the idea of the singularity, which is like the intelligence explosion. And they want you to believe that we're on that path. For you to believe we're on that path, you have to believe that all of these things you're seeing on ChatGPT, whatever, you have to not understand the amount of grunt work and the millions and millions of people just sitting engineering these things and labeling these things, because then you'll be like, wow, look at it, how great it is, but if you know what's under the hood, and if you are one of these people, like in my PhD, if you look at how people described on the news my work, the final product of my PhD. Wow, AI knows how you vote by just looking at cars. Wow, this algorithm is gonna, that's how they talked about my work. In the reality, I was sitting there 12 hours a day looking at cars, just doing this data, doing that data. It took so much of that to get to the final output. But when I talked about it, when I wrote my papers, I didn't, that's not all of the process I talked about. So people are so impressed. They think that I, created something superhuman. Maybe they're going to be afraid that it's going to take over, whatever. So they have to hide the actual reality of the situation for you to believe that there is this intelligence explosion kind of thing. But there isn't, you know, and it's not the first time that this has happened in AI. Every decade, 1948. Oh my God, we've created machines. That's it. What are we gonna do? What if there's an intelligence explosion? Blah blah blah. 1967, same. Well, like in 2 years, we're gonna look at the machines we've created. Blah blah blah. 1984. You know what I mean? It's exactly the same cycle because they have a lot of money. That's called an AI summer where everybody's excited about AI. There's so many different headlines about AI, blah, blah, blah. Then, when there's the AI summer, they're hyping up everything. And then everybody kind of gets disappointed. So there's no more money for AI. That's called an AI winter. And when there's an AI winter, you don't hear about AI. And then somehow somebody gets excited, then there's an AI summer. So right now we're in an AI summer. And this summer is very crazy because it's like the dot-com bubble where somebody says AI, somebody did a study where if you say you're doing AI in your startup, you're 15 to 50% more likely to you're likely to get 15 to 50% more funding just because you're saying that you have AI. And of course, like when you look at the venture capitalists, this is the dream. What do they want? Your dream is to make as much money as possible without hiring anybody. So now you don't have to pay people, you don't have to deal with health benefits or whatever. You just have things that build other things, and you're done. Like you make lots of money. That's the dream. So they want to believe that is what's happening, but that's not what's happening.
Political activism, Timnit, you were a powerful voice against the Tigray genocide, a powerful voice against what Israel is doing in Palestine, a powerful voice against racism, sexism, and a lot of problems. And it looks like to me that there is a sense of righteous anger in you, and everything you do in the advocacy in politics is connected to why you do the things you do in artificial intelligence as well. It looks like there is a common thread. What is that?
Well, so I mean, I'm writing a book right now, and I wasn't, as a scientist, I thought that science was not political. I thought, yeah, you just do math, I could just do science, and I hate these politicians. They're doing this, they're starting pointless wars, they're whatever, just can't be trusted. I'm just gonna go do my science. And then it took a long time to realize the extent to which science is involved in these wars and these horrible things that I don't like. The extent to which science is political, the extent to which engineering is political, because you look at all of the things we talk about AI, they were always funded by the Department of Defense in the US when they were at war with someone. My field, computer vision, was created because they wanted to analyze images during the war in Vietnam, and it makes me think, what if we had a world where the money it's not about killing people? What if we cared about saving as many people as we can from death? I mean, it's not normal, I think, what we're doing right now. It really isn't normal for technology to be cryptography is the same thing. For technology to be primarily funded by entities who are only concerned about killing people more efficiently is not a normal thing, right? And so at some point you think, this doesn't impact your work. But at some point you don't know that that's the case. So you just kind of like the technology, you just do your work, you abstract things out. At some point you learn that this is the case. Everything is tied to the defense, military, all the money, unlimited money that they have. And then you think, okay, this doesn't impact my work. But then at some point you see how the entire trajectory of the actual algorithms or the methods or the paradigms that are created are directly connected to the origins of the funding or the origins of the goals. You start seeing those things, and then you say, well, I can do something differently. And for me to do something differently, though, I have to understand those origins and those goals. I can't do something differently without understanding what is driving the current technological evolution. And if I understand that, and I can say, if I want it to, what should drive it, and how do I kind of do something different? And so they're all connected, for me, but it wasn't always the case. I there was a time when I completely separated, these kinds of things in the past, because I was just trying to do my engineering. I didn't want to be involved but then they wouldn't let me do that also. I just to enter a class, I had to fight just to, get a grade that I was supposed to get. I had to fight, like, just to, apply for college. So, it's that kind of thing, I think, that kind of made me learn that these two are not separated.
Well, one final question, Timnit, and I'm aware that probably I'm eating into your time, so feel free to say.
It's okay.
All right. So, but one final, what is it to be like, Timnit? I mean, I see you're at it on Twitter fighting against people you call eugenicists and a lot of other problems. You're a scientist. You have a lot of projects. What is the average life for you? How do you manage all these things? I think a lot of people who are in science would want to know how you manage these things.
I don't care what people
Mm.
say about me. So that's the first thing. I used to, when growing up I had, I don't know, like, if you have this situation, but you have to kind of, you love your relatives, but sometimes, they say things and you'd be like, okay, I love you. I hear what you said. I'm not gonna do whatever you're saying, or there's just, I grew up with I have a huge family, extended, whatever. So you kind of grow up, kind of taking whatever some people say and like leaving whatever other people say. So I'm not very much into peer. I've never been like that much peer pressured. So I'm okay. It was very hard when the two things that were hard were realizing the extent to which people were genocidal. That was a shock. I mean, I think I wasn't understanding. At first, I was kind of trying to, um, you know, like when people are like, "Oh, you're TPLF, blah blah blah." I'm like, "No, what? I had, like, they kicked me out. What are you talking about?" Then I realized, "Oh, okay, this is just a talking point, But just that took time for me to learn how the extent to which people are extremely genocidal is, of course, very, very disturbing. But it was nothing. What I was experiencing was nothing compared to people experiencing actual genocide. But I think that what the hardest was, when fighting Google was very difficult, because I mean, that wasn't just people saying stuff on Twitter. That was like a real,
Mhm.
oh my God, what is this company going to do to me? They're very powerful. They're harassing my team. As I was fighting them, it was a 24/7 job to make sure my story is out and everything. So, you know, um, in general, I'm okay, because I don't like really listen to peer pressure. And I think understanding the tactics works. A lot of the people you see who are yelling at me on Twitter are actually part of an actual network whose job is to do that. They get talking points. They're told, this week you should talk about her hair. Next week,
Mhm.
talk about her legs. I don't know this. That's how it works, right? And so when you know that, you kind of need to, uh, brush it off. And so, yeah, I'm fine. I just, I don't like fighting all the time. I'm actually a very lighthearted person. So that's not usually how I am. But, and I like my work. I'm at DAIR. I don't have that kind of issues in my day to day. So, it's not really a problem.
Well, more power to you, Timnit. You are an inspiration to a lot of us. I like you a lot. A lot of people are inspired by you. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
everything that you do. Thank you for the time today. Obviously, a lot of people are going to ask me to have you on again for sure. So
Okay.
keep that in the back of your mind.
Sure.
But for today, thank you very much, Timnit.
Thank you for having me. And do you